In 2024, I did a free-to-play challenge of Path of Exile 1, documenting my journey through the game, threw in some lore, and hopefully made your day a little better. I also proved that the game can truly be played by spending not a single dime. Now, in January 2026, the spark of inspiration ignited my righteous fire of determination. Subtlety was never my strong suit. And I set out to beat the game in 24 hours or less again. Hi, I'm still Daniel. To give the new viewers some context, Path of Exile 1 is still a free-to-play game. It's free to download through the website, Steam, probably Timo, I don't know. The major topic that always comes up when discussing the free-to-play aspect is the stash or chest. You only have 4 basic stash tabs, and at some point you would have to sort it out to have space, limit how many items you pick up, or you open your wallet. The shop offers basic stash tabs for a few dollars, but also premium tabs, which makes it possible for others to see the items in that tab and message you for it. Since my last free-to-play video, there are also merchant tabs, which pretty much automate that process. More on that throughout the video. I don't have any of this premium stuff in this free-to-play challenge though, so trading items is going to be difficult. Path of Exile 1 is also meant to be played forever, so there is no real ending to it. For my previous challenge and this one, I'm giving myself the goal of getting the 4 Void Stones in the endgame. How to get them and what that exactly means is going to be explained later. With the basic info out of the way, what is the main skill or character build for this challenge? I'm not that good at the game, and I like to follow build guides by much smarter players. What the hell is Quinn69 doing here? Thanks to a very special content creator, even I, an absolute troglodyte, was able to beat the game. I present to you the Righteous Fire Chieftain by Pohx. Pohx is a legend, and thanks to him and his build guide, I started my journey through Path of Exile 1 again and tried to beat the game as a free-to-play player in less than 24 hours in-game time. What challenges did I have to overcome? Why on Rayclast would I set myself on fire on purpose? And most importantly, did I succeed? On January 5th, I opened the game, created a new character, and started off, as always, on the Twilight Strand in Act 1. The walking simulator build is going to take a few levels. Stay tuned. Before this challenge began, I prepared basic item filters. You can download the same filters through filterblade.xyz, a project by Neversink. I highly recommend it if you're starting out in Path of Exile 1 or 2. In addition, I used Path of Building, a community tool that was on my other monitor, so I could follow the build guide by Pohx. It's incredibly detailed and told me what I should get on the skill tree, what items I should look out for, and so on. And lastly, I'm going to focus more on the build and progression instead of the story and lore of Path of Exile 1 in this video. Check out the first video if you want more detail on the quests and so on. Now with the preamble done... Wait, what am I doing? Oh, right. I defeated Hillock in the Twilight Strand with my main character, the Marauder. but Pohx recommends a witch mule. What the hell is a mule, you might be asking in that voice? In Path of Exile 1, depending on the exile, you get different skill gems throughout the story. Everyone can use everything in this amazing ARPG. But the Marauder doesn't get the fire skill I want at the start. The fire skill is called Rolling Magma. So to use it on my main character, I created a witch mule, another character, played through a few early zones of the game and unlocked the skill gem. In addition, I grabbed a few support gems that the Marauder also doesn't get, on top of Holy Flame Totem, a stationary totem that spits fire at nearby enemies, seems handy, and Frostblink, a common movement skill. Then I found a pair of boots with the movement speed modifier. Fairly common in the shop in Act 1, but sometimes you get unlucky and find no boots whatsoever. This time I got lucky and put all of these items into my stash, swapped over to my Marauder, and finally started the real journey through the acts. And then I instantly noticed I was a dumbass. I leveled the skill gem Rolling Magma, meaning it now required a higher level and also more intelligence attribute, which my Marauder didn't have. He's a big dum-dum, so I had to use the basic fireball skill for a while. It's fine. While moving towards the mudflats, I found the NPC Aelith for the current 3.27 expansion, Keepers of the Flame. Very interesting and sometimes horrifying expansion, but for the sake of this challenge, I completely ignored it. Kind of. As you can see, there are enormous structures in the zone that I can burn down thanks to a flame which is on my back. The arm that grows out of my shoulder blades doesn't matter. There are very powerful mechanics in this expansion, and it would make things far easier if I used them, but I didn't. I did kill some of the demons that roam around in this purple area, but I rarely went out of my way to do so during the story. So if anyone is wondering,
why didn't I use the graft plot or womb gifts?
Yes, they are called womb gifts. Don't ask in the comments. Now you know why I didn't do any of that. Okay, I did it once, at some point, to get rid of the quest pop-up at the bottom, but I didn't pick up any loot, and when I accidentally started the mechanic, I tried to instantly move away from it. I wanted this challenge to be as close as possible to the core game, but I also wanted a fresh-ish trade economy to trade for items and currency. Every time a new expansion releases, the trade economy starts fresh, and every exile wakes up in Act 1 with literally nothing. I love trade in Path of Exile 1 and 2, and I want to show it off in these videos. It's one of the major reasons why I stuck with the game for the past years, and 7,500 hours, Jesus Christ. Now with all of this said, who wants to see the walking simulator? Yeah, same. Let's move on. After mudflats and the flooded depths, I found a +1 to level of all fire spell skill gems. Wand. What a mouthful. Most spell skills increase in damage the higher the level is. A single level can actually be felt in the early game when fighting monsters or bosses. So this wand was a great power increase. Moving through the ledge, you might notice I was already using the Rolling Magma skill. I'm not going to show literally every piece of item I pick up and use, otherwise this video is going to be literally 24 hours long. I bought an item earlier with an intelligence modifier on it. This gave me enough to equip some gems and move towards a skill node on the tree that also gave me intelligence attribute. So, I'm not a dum-dum anymore and can use the skill now. It's a beautiful thing in Path of Exile 1, And 2, that you constantly have to balance attributes and requirements to continue using certain skills and items. Sometimes it can be annoying and a bit of a hassle, but it's part of the game. Like From Software games and having a stamina system. They just go hand in hand. After accidentally opening a breach and moving into the prison, I went back to Lionai's Watch and searched for B-B-B. If you never played PoE, this won't make sense. If you did play PoE and also don't know what this means, it will blow your mind. The B stands for the color of the socket and the dash is the link. Meaning, I was searching for an item in this shop that has 3 sockets with the blue color that are also linked. And I was lucky, because I found a chest plate with 3 blue sockets that were linked. Items have requirements, and if that requirement is strength, it has a strong tendency to roll red sockets, because strength relates to red in this game. Thus, having a strength item with 3 blue sockets that are also linked in Act 1 is like winning the mini lottery. After all this, I put Rolling Magma, Combustion support and Elemental Proliferation support in my new body armor. This increases my damage, and the last support spreads elemental ailments. Ignite is an ailment, so if my Rolling Magma hits an enemy and ignites it, enemies around it also get ignited. It's one of the best feelings being able to spread debuffs from enemy to enemy in Path of Exile 1. And 2. Now back in the prison and getting absolutely mocked by monsters, I leveled up to level 9. Is there something special about level 9? No. Anyways, Brutus. Even with Rolling Magma and using the skill Firewall, which powers up projectiles that go through the wall of fire, fighting Brutus took like 30 seconds. It doesn't sound long when I say it like this. This is Path of Exile 1, not 2, so beating bosses in a few hits isn't that uncommon. And if you noticed, bosses now have health bars, so you can actually see how much health they have at all times. Really great addition to the game since my last video in 2024. There are quite a few more additions throughout the game, and I'll mention them when they come up. Actually, I'm going to mention one right away, because it's awesome. There is now a button to level all the gems that can be leveled up. Yes, you can clap for that. With Brutus defeated and no death whatsoever, yet, I briefly moved to Lionai's Watch and grabbed myself the Vitality Aura gem. This aura, when activated, regenerates my health constantly, but reserves a tiny amount of my mana. Very helpful to stay alive. In the ship graveyard, I made quick work of Captain Fairgraves, and I went back to town again. By the way, being in town is probably the worst thing if you want to go fast, which I tried to do. I'm just really bad at it. Since my previous free-to-play challenge video in 2024, not only did we get boss health bars, but also re-specialization. Probably one of the most requested features since years. An easy way to refund skill points on the skill tree, especially early on when you make mistakes and when you are a new player. Even more recently, there is an option to refund all skill points with a single click. We truly live in the future. The technology is here! Jokes aside, this is really cool and relates to something even bigger that was added to Path of Exile recently. Gold. Gold is now a currency that drops regularly from the beginning of the game until the very end. It is automatically picked up when you get near it. You probably noticed gold dropping in this video. There are two surprises when it comes to gold that differ from most other games in the genre. Path of Exile 1 and 2 locks it to your character. Technically your expansion environment. The second surprise is gold cannot be traded to other players. Gold is truly acquired by playing the game and moving your character to pick it up. So you can't have gold farmers make 10 billion gold an hour and crash the economy. Back to respecialization, which I mentioned 3 paragraphs ago. It uses gold, and how much gold it requires goes up the higher your level is. So at the start, it's quite cheap to quickly refund a few skill points when you made a mistake, like I did. But when you are level 90, you need a lot of gold to refund a few skill points, or all of them. And gold is not only used for refunding skill points. More on that later. Let's finish Act 1 by defeating Merveil, and while I let the fight play out, I'll play the song A Siren's Call from Path of Exile 2. Enjoy.
This is not true faith!
Sirens call, strong as the tide. None could save her, nor could she hide. Shadows then rose, whispering low, lamenting the dark she came to know. We may never learn what dreams that once had burned, what fate had destined, his gift had wrought for her maddening love.
Your curse is over, Siren. Rest with Hinekora, mother of the dead.
Entering Act 2 and knowing the warmth of righteous fire is around the corner, I quickly moved towards the right. This is where I'll find the Chamber of Sins, one of the bandits, and a side quest that is now kind of mandatory because it gives a skill point. I went to the Chamber of Sins right away and was blessed with an Orb of Alchemy. As with most currencies in the game, it's about crafting. It allowed me to change a normal item into a rare item with 4 random modifiers. Very good if I wanted powerful items, which of course I wanted. Numbers go bigger. That's the goal of the game, baby. At the end of the Trial of Ascendancy, I stood still to get some great footage for this video. Then I died. That was death number 1. And many more are going to follow. After fighting the boss Fidelitas to grab the quest item, I went back to the forest encampment, which is the Act 2 town, and remembered this is when you unlock another new feature that was recently added, or kind of ported over from Path of Exile 2. In Path of Exile 2, spoiler, there is an NPC that identifies all the items in your inventory for free with a single click. This hooded guy is really cool. I wish he would be in Path of Exile 1. Anyway, with the thousands of items you might be picking up, having a quick way to identify all of the items in your inventory is great. Now in PoE 1, Yena in Act 2 can do the same. Each town from now on has one NPC which can identify all the items in your inventory. It's usually the one who sells you jewelry, flasks, skill or support gems. Scroll of Wisdoms truly have become a relic from Diablo 2. 5 more years and items are going to drop identified. Mark my words. Enough talk. It's righteous fire time. We are like 25 minutes into this video. So what the heck does this skill do? And how does it work? And why is it based? Righteous fire engulfs you in magical fire. Okay, I'm not going to explain it like this. It's a fire spell which is constantly active after using it once for that area and burns enemies when they get close to you. It's pretty obvious at which point it burns the enemies to a nice crisp, but it mentions it has a radius of 1.8 meters. That's about as wide as your mom's. This radius of 1.8 meters, or whatever that is in made-up American units, is going to increase as the skill gem levels, which is amazing. Having a much larger area of effect, or AoE, is something my ex-girlfriend wanted from me. AoE means you can burn enemies from further away, making it even more like a walking simulator build. But how does this thing do damage? The damage is calculated depending on the life and energy shield, but I'm only going to focus on the life part. It says it deals 70% of your maximum life as base fire damage per second. Maximum life refers to what that number says right here, not here. So if you are at 400 life, but your maximum is 4000, it doesn't mean you do less damage, because your maximum life is being taken into account, not your current life. Path of Exile 1 and 2 is very specific with its wording. This in short means more life equals more damage. Now the downside of this powerful fire skill is the small area at the start. But more importantly, you burn yourself constantly. When you reach 1 life, it thankfully stops. If you are in the middle of enemies though, and it stops at 1 life, you are probably dead. So the goal is to never even reach 1 life. Okay, that's pretty much every video game ever. To counteract this large downside, I needed insane life regeneration. The Vitality Aura gem from earlier gave me flat life regeneration. Flat meaning it's a flat number. So 1, 2, 69, you get the point. On the skill tree, there are notes that give % of life regeneration per second. Now all of this counters the large downside of you burn for 90% of your maximum life per second as fire damage. Wait, fire damage. There is fire resistance in the game. If you thought that, well done, dear viewer. Because I take fire damage, it can be reduced with more fire resistance, which I tried to get by getting 2 ruby rings, giving me more fire resistance. This wasn't enough. It's a bit difficult at first to get righteous fire going, but it's a small puzzle to solve and has a large upside when it's solved, because you become the walking simulator build. To skip a bit ahead in terms of progression, elemental resistances are maxed out at 75%, unless you increase that maximum by getting % maximum fire resistance, which is also something I was doing whenever possible, or when Pohx told me to do so. This further decreases the downside, helping me to survive the constant burn, and I'm not talking about the burn around my groin. For now, I was still using Rolling Magma, because it is an active skill I can spam at enemies. Now, let me do a quick summary of what I had to do in Act 2. First of all, the bandits. Either you help one or kill all of them to get 2 skill points. I helped Creighton to get 8% more movement speed. Gotta go fast, am I right? This gave me 1 quest item, and the other item I got from killing the Weaver. These boss fights were fine. Definitely would have enjoyed more damage, but Righteous Fire was a bit further away. Unless you are like me and brute force it. You can clearly see that I was slowly burning myself alive and just spamming my life flask over and over. Don't do this at home, kids. I grabbed the golden hand thing quest, which gives a skill point, and then I felt like gambling. This is another feature ported over from Path of Exile 2, which also uses gold. So if you didn't get an upgrade for a while, you can go to an NPC, which offers every base item known to Ray-classed kind, and gamble for an upgrade. Sometimes you get lucky and get a rare item with crazy stats, or even a unique item, but usually it's just fine. It is not worth it, and Pohx says so too, but I tried it anyways. After going into and through the Vaal Temple, I encountered a new secret boss, or something. Seriously, some of these rare monsters are tankier than most act bosses. Holy moly, this thing didn't want to die. Having quickly moved back to town and then activating Righteous Fire once again, I noticed something. Do you? I don't die anymore. Let's go! Level 23 is when I started using Righteous Fire, and I never stopped using it until the very end of this challenge. There is now a constant area around my character, burning enemies and dealing damage, requiring no extra input, beside having to activate it once every time I enter an area. Speaking of area, yeah, the skill has a small area, but the radius is going to increase. That's also my go-to line on Grindr. They usually stop respawning after that. Anyhow, the Act 2 boss, the Vaal Oversoul. Finally outside the Vaal Temple, which was very stinky, and breathing the fresh air of Act 3, I saw a woman tied down and asking for help. As a gentleman, I did what any gentleman would do. I killed the dude. Her name is Clarissa, and she asked me to find her husband Tolman in the crematorium. Before that, I found a sick ruby ring, which was an upgrade. Numbers going bigger. On my way to the crematorium, I found an essence monster and killed it. It was fairly easy, and Righteous Fire started to feel good. I also found a Vaal side area, extra content that was added in the expansion Sacrifice of the Vaal in 2014. Holy moly! These areas can have great rewards and Vaal skill gems. I'm not going to explain them right now, because it's not necessary. Path of Exile 2 currently has the Fate of the Vaal expansion, so I was obligated to do the Vaal side areas in Path of Exile 1. Okay, I wasn't, but I wanted to do it. I then chose the Recovery Mastery, giving me 50 life regeneration per second, which made Piety in the crematorium very easy. It just feels good being able to stand next to the boss, being attacked, and literally not caring about it. Now with the sewer keys in one hand, I grabbed a major new aura gem with the other. Purity of Elements. It's amazing. Not only did it give me a bunch of elemental resistance, which is going to increase as the gem levels, but also made me immune to all elemental ailments. Thus, I could not be chilled, frozen, shocked, or ignited. And no, ignited doesn't mean burn. It's different. I don't know why. Having high fire resistance makes Righteous Fire even easier to use, but also indirectly made me take less damage that I now don't have to recover or regenerate. So my regeneration indirectly improved by having even higher fire resistance up to the maximum 75%, which I increased to 78% thanks to these two nodes on the skill tree. Through the sewer and ignoring Cassia, I'm sorry, I found the thaumatic sulfite in the docks very quickly. I feel like I was in a speedrun here. Went through the Solaris Temple and finally did one of those breaches. I was really annoyed by the constant pop-ups at the bottom, so I just did one, but I didn't grab the loot afterwards. I promise. I gave Lady Diala my sulfite, no, not what you're thinking, and got myself the Infernal Talc, which burned the blockage to get to the Lunaris Temple and fight Piety once again. This time she doesn't escape and burns with the power of Righteous Fire. Sorry, the power is getting to my head. And technically she does escape. Anyhow, from this epic fight to the library. I hate this place. It's a fetch quest for a ghost, which, to be fair, he's a cool dude. He unlocks a bunch of the gems that you get throughout the story, even the ones you don't get as a marauder. As mentioned at the start, depending on which Exile you play, you do or don't get some skill or support gems. But this guy, he sells you everything for a price. The price being fancy rocks, also called currency. To summarize all the upgrades, because there were many, I now had gloves with 4 sockets that were linked with each other, and adding burning damage to my Righteous Fire skill, giving me more damage. This allowed me to walk past enemies, kill them and move on. It's becoming more like a walking simulator build. In addition, for boss fights and tougher enemies, I grabbed Fire Trap, a trap skill which throws out a trap. If an enemy walks over it, it explodes, dealing a decent amount of damage and leaves an area of burning damage, dealing fire damage over time. The same type of damage my Righteous Fire does. Now having gotten rid of a rolling magma, I also briefly used Armageddon Brand, which I'm not going to explain because it's going to disappear fairly quickly. If you want me to do a brand build in future challenge videos, let me know in the comments below. To summarize, I now had a better passive skill, Righteous Fire, on top of a better active skill that I can spam at enemies, Fire Trap. I even equipped the curse Flammability to decrease the fire resistance of whoever I cursed. Thus, it was time for me to move into the Labyrinth, to get my Ascendancy, or my subclass. For players that only played Path of Exile 2, this is Path of Exile 1's Trial of the Sekima or Trial of the Chaos God. With high life regeneration, this is quite easy. After defeating Izaro thrice and proving to the Lady of Justice that I was worthy, I ascended to the Chieftain. There are 3 subclasses for the Marauder, but the Chieftain heavily focuses on fire-related stuff. The node Tassalio Cleansing Water gave me the modifier. Modifiers to fire resistance also apply to cold and lightning resistance at 50% of their value, unaffected by Ignite. This one node pretty much solves your resistance problems, because any type of fire resistance, no matter if it's from an item or the skill tree, also applies to my cold and lightning resistance from now on. It's only 50%, so having 12 fire resistance on a ring gives me 6 cold and 6 lightning resistance. But later, when you have 40 fire resistance on a ring, it's pretty darn good. It also allowed me to double and triple down on one resistance and ignore everything else. Unless it's chaos resistance. That's a different story. Defensive-wise, I was now ready to blast through the acts with full force. And with full force, I went straight to the Act 3 boss, Dominus, High Templar.
I exiled an animal. Now you almost resemble a man, Karui. Have you ever seen the true face of God, Exile? Nightmare prevails! The light of divinity!
The Empire dies with you, Dominus. The Karui will never again be slaves.
May fear guide you.
Now in the Act 4 town Highgate, which has the best music, and I will fight you on that, I checked my playtime, which was close to 3 hours. And I only had 2 deaths. I do not want to read any comments from the hardcore players. Shut your mouths. Moving on, I killed Vol in the dried lake, grabbed the banner which lifted the barrier of the mines. Going through the mines, I found Lady Diala and had to get 2 quest items to activate this cannon, or laser, to get into the beast. The beast being the source of all corruption, which is bad. I wonder who made this cannon. Sir, we need some answers. Path of Exile 2 aside, I entered the Wrestle's dream first. At that point, I had to take a quick breather by listening to some lore, which related to Merveil, the Act 1 boss we fought earlier.
I knelt in the sand of the Grand Arena, awaiting the killing blow. I raised my eyes to look upon my death. Instead, I saw her, Merveil. Her beautiful eyes met mine, and I knew she saw me too. I turned my opponent's strike and killed the man with his own dagger. Fighting had always been about survival, the primal instinct to kill or be killed. Now, the fight became about something else. Love.
After fighting the Resso, which was easy, I went through Calm's dream to get the Eye of Fury. But first, I got very lucky once again and got a 5-link chest. It was literally perfect. 3 blue sockets and 2 red sockets linked together. Exactly what Pohx suggested in the build guide. I fought Calm without it though, and it was still fairly easy. I was clearly ahead of the curve. Not unkillable, but still very powerful. Back in Highgate, still the best music by the way, I equipped the new chest plate and put the life tap support into my 5th socket, which gives me a bit more damage after killing an enemy. That's the easy way of explaining it when it comes to the Righteous Fire setup. In addition, I got rid of Armageddon Brand now, thanks to now having a 4-link helmet with 1 red socket and 3 green sockets. This became my Fire Trap setup. Fire Trap is the active skill that I'm going to use until the very end of this challenge. The skill required more dexterity, That's why I couldn't use it for a while. In my helmet, I now had a fire trap, trap and mine damage support, swift affliction support, and also life tap, making it so my skill uses life and not mana. Having high life regeneration with this build, I could use life instead of my mana and really not care about it. It's pretty sweet. This also allowed me to use all of my mana for auras. This is probably not the smartest thing to do, but I did it anyway. Having had Purity of Elements since Act 3 and removing Vitality, I now equipped Determination, a very powerful aura giving me flat armor. Armor, for the people that don't know, gives physical damage reduction. It has a limit of 90%, which is difficult to reach for obvious reasons, and I won't reach that number, but I didn't have to. More on that much later. The thing with having all of my mana reserved for my auras means I couldn't use Frostblink, my movement skill. This sucked, but is going to be solved by getting mana reservation efficiency, decreasing the mana reservation percent on the auras. Until then, I just had to run around instead of spamming a movement skill every few seconds. Speaking of spamming, I was completely ignoring an entire skill setup that Pohx recommended. Shield Charge could allow me to use my shield as a movement skill by charging forward. This could be used over and over without a cooldown. Seems amazing, right? Personally, I don't like it, because I usually get stuck on something and the feeling of getting stuck feels awful, and I don't want it. So if you see me not using it ever, that's why. I still recommend trying it out if you play Pohx's build. I mean, you all are going to play his build after this video, right? I mean, you could play it while watching this video. Anyhow, moving on, fighting Piety in the belly of the beast was fairly easy by throwing fire traps in her face and running circles. Afterwards, I had to grab 3 organs, don't worry about it, from 3 minor bosses in the harvest area. Chevron, Maligaro, and Doedre had to go, and with the organs in my inventory, I entered the Black Core to fight the Act 4 boss, Malachi, the Nightmare.
In this moment, you and I will create the most beautiful of nightmares together. Creation? Rather the realm of the gods, isn't it? Bow your head to your one true god.
Now, Exile!
What?
Now, Exile!
Now, let us see if you truly understand what it means to be Nightmare. I gave my life. Nightmare gave me so much more salvation. Accept the gift of immortality. Why are you so in love with death?
Kitava. Your slaves are dead, and your kingdom dies with them. You are the father of corruption no more.
After moving into and through the ascent area, I got to the portal which should bring me back to Oriath. It instead landed me in the slave pens. I didn't like the smell here, so I went through it very quickly into the Act 5 town, which I still can't remember the name of. After 7,500 hours of playtime, it's the Overseer's Tower, if you were wondering. To get out of this place, I had to defeat the boss called Justica Castices? I don't know. It's the boss that drops the Eyes of Seal, but I'm 99% sure that quest item is his ballsack. You be the judge of that. Moving through the Templar courts and the Chamber of Innocence, I encountered the High Templar Avarius, who was floating there, menacingly. Story stuff happened and he turned into Innocence, God Emperor of Eternity. I think that is a self-imposed title. This very long fight had 3 invincibility phases. Thankfully, my damage felt very good, and having had high life made me play a bit around and tank a few hits on purpose to see if I could survive. I was having a good time. Having defeated Innocence, the god of whatever the heck, the power balance was off, and thus Kitava, the hungry one, what was his name? He was very hungry. Kitava the Insatiable awoke and wrecked Oriath, which I had to go through now, fighting even more difficult enemies. Thankfully, I gambled in town, put everything on red, obviously, and got myself a nice helmet upgrade. It took a few tries to get the colors right, but no big deal. Still, going for an armor and evasion helmet isn't ideal, because armor was technically my main defense. But this relates to the sockets and colors I mentioned earlier. An armor and evasion item would roll red and green sockets easier, making it far easier to use my 4-link fire trap setup in. With not a whole lot of currency, I had to balance all these things on the fly. Moving on to the Oshery to get a quest item, but more importantly, this was when Righteous Fire really started feeling good. It was amazing being able to just walk through all these enemies and seeing them fall over. Super smooth gameplay. With another side quest done that gave me another skill point, I went to the final boss of Act 5, Kitava the Insatiable.
The flame of hope may flicker, but it cannot be extinguished.
The Exile could not defeat a god like Kitava. Sin saved me, and with Lily Roth, I sailed back to the continent Rayclast. For the sake of this video, and because I already did one of these before, we'll go through the second part of Path of Exile 1's story very quickly. To recap, I used Righteous Fire as my passive damage dealing skill. If enemies get too close, they burn with no extra input required on my end. For additional damage, I used Fire Trap to actively deal damage by throwing traps on the ground, and if an enemy stepped on it, it gave them a big boo-boo. Both of these skills have the spell and fire tag, so their damage can be scaled with fire damage and spell damage on the skill tree or on items. But technically what they really do is deal fire damage over time. The most important modifier to scale that type of damage is Fire Damage Over Time Multiplier. This modifier is quite rare on the skill tree and on gear, but is so stupidly powerful you can actually feel the difference early on if you get like 6% more multiplier. To step back a bit, in my second recording I stopped playing after reaching Act 6 and had a playtime of 4 hours and 24 minutes. I also checked out the currency exchange, which is now available. I was unsure if I should use the currency exchange during the story, but I want to show off trade. That is why I'm playing in a trade economy. It also helps me to play faster, to get upgrades quicker, and so on. This makes this challenge easier if I have currency that is worth something. To explain it to the new viewers, the currency exchange is available to everyone, including free-to-play players. The currency exchange, which is linked to the NPC Faustus, was added in a previous expansion as a test and now is part of the core game, both in Path of Exile 1 and 2. In the currency exchange, you can exchange currencies with other players. You do not see the other players, you do not need to go to their hideouts, and they don't even need to be online. So what I did was, I had an Orb of Regret, but I would very much like an Orb of Alchemy, which makes items rare. After paying a gold fee to Faustus for doing the trade, he does a swapperino between the two players, and now I had a few Orb of Alchemy, while some other player got my Orb of Regret. You can do thousands of these trades in a row every hour. The only limit is your gold, which can only be earned by playing the game. It's quite beautiful how they balanced all of this. For now, I used the currency exchange sometimes and very often in the endgame, because it's a very fast and easy way to turn a bunch of currencies into Chaos Orbs, which is the go-to currency to buy items early on. Let's go back to Act 6 and the playthrough. Being in the Twilight Strand again and cleaning it up for Lily Roth, it unlocked all the skill and support gems. This is incredibly helpful in Act 6 if you needed to round off your build. Maybe you needed an aura or a support gem you couldn't get. Now you can get pretty much everything your heart desires. Unless it's love and attention. Tukohama, the Karui god of war, might sound familiar to some people who played Path of Exile 2 and its fourth act. Defeating him adds his soul to the Pantheon and allows me to get part of his power. To very briefly explain this, the story is now focused on defeating a bunch of gods to steal their power, to then go back to Oriath and slap Kitava. Gameplay-wise, the player can only activate one major god and one minor god. Tukohama, being a minor god, gave me, in simple terms, some physical damage reduction, the same type of defense that armor gives. More importantly, killing every single god is kind of mandatory, because killing them is also a quest, and the quest reward is a skill point. And you do want every skill point, because with each skill point I can get more power on the enormous skill tree. So, time to kill some gods. After the prison area and defeating Brutus once again, I skipped past the NPC Gwenon sorry expedition enjoyers, and killed another minor god, Aberrath, the Cloven One. Do not read the lore behind this boss. Holy fuck. Taking a stroll through the Western Forest brought me to Rislatha, who wasn't really a challenge. More god powers, skill points, and that is a good helmet, but the issue was I won't be able to have the right socket colors on it because it's a strength base, and I would need 3 green sockets. It's possible, but highly unlikely, and I didn't want to use a bunch of chromatic orbs. Having noticed that my chest plate was still blue, or a basic magic item, I then traded my 1 Chaos Orb for 1 Regal... 22? 22 Regal Orbs! That's pretty good. So are these boots, with 25% movement speed, 88 maximum life, and some cold resistance. I'll take them, making my way down to the Act 6 boss, slaying hordes of monsters and doing the absolute worst, in quotes, puzzle imaginable. I fought Zoagoth, the Brine King. The fight was absolutely fine, but I had to focus on the mechanic a bit, as it does damage.
I cannot carry this.
Born of ocean's mire, and death washed clean of dark desire.
Moving into Act 7, I skilled the skill node Spiritual Aid, which boosted my damage significantly throughout the story. The description of the node is: increases and reductions to minion damage also affect you. With you, they mean you, the cutie watching this video. So any type of minion damage on the skill tree or on items gave me, the player, damage. This was far easier than crafting a better wand or scepter and praying to the RNG gods. After picking up Maligaro's map, entering his sanctum, or my nightmare, because I get lost here nearly every time, I slapped him and his toys. With the key in my inventory, I moved deeper into Act 7. But before that, I had to sort out my inventory. It was full, as always. For whatever reason, I didn't use a better item filter. I blame past Daniel. I apparently picked up a helmet upgrade with over 80 life and triple elemental resistance. With the Ascendancy node I mentioned earlier, my fire resistance becomes cold and lightning resistance, but this doesn't mean extra resistance is bad. To make this helmet usable, because sockets and colors matter in PoE 1, not 2, I used the currency exchange again to get some chromatic orbs and orb of fusings. This wouldn't be a thing during a League launch, because the economy would be very fresh and things would be far more expensive. But doing this over a month later, the economy settled and even a single Chaos Orb, which are fairly common during the story, can get you quite far. Speaking of the RNG gods earlier, they heard my plea and sent me a better wand. Comparing my new and old setup by hovering over the skill icon at the bottom right, I focused on the first line, giving the damage ideal per second, aka DPS. These numbers should never be fully trusted in PoE 1. Because the game is weird, man. Still, it gave some info if an item was better or worse, at least at the start. My Righteous Fire went from 9,500 fire damage per second to 10,700. Not a huge jump, especially if you compare it to the attack-based skill I used in my previous challenge, but an attack-based skill only does damage when I use it. Righteous Fire didn't need to be used. I just stand there and it did damage. All the time. The problem with attack-based skills is sometimes you just can't attack right now. Not because your attack speed is slow or something is on cooldown, but because you get bombarded by so many attacks or so many monsters that you can't even realistically stand still to do damage. Some rare monsters or even bosses can be so dangerous that you really should focus on defense first and damage later. Just an interesting comparison between two very different skills and how different the game can feel. Highly recommend trying out a variety of skill archetypes, both in Path of Exile 1 and 2. Back to the challenge and to the killing of another minor god, Ralakesh. His minor god power is going to be used for the rest of this challenge. The power he gives is 25% reduced physical damage over time taken while moving. Moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage. What does this actually do now in plain English? To explain this, I need to make sure you understand the one negative aspect of this build. Damage over time. And you might think, isn't this what the build is doing? Or I'm doing as damage? Yes, there is fire, cold, physical, and chaos damage over time in Path of Exile 1, but the enemies can do the same. This build by Pohx focuses on armor, which is great for hit-based damage. So a sword strike or mace bonking me on my head, that kind of stuff. A hit is, let us say, 1000 damage. I have enough armor or physical damage reduction to reduce it by 75%, and now it's only 250 damage. Great. And with high life regeneration or clicking the life flask once, I can keep myself alive. But damage that is over time is not hit-based. It's over time. Bleeding does physical damage over time and deals additional damage if I moved. With this minor god power, it reduces the damage taken of the bleed if I moved, and in an ARPG, you usually move. And on top of that, the extra damage I would take is not taken. Very helpful to keep myself alive when I bleed, because if you think about it, I take damage over time all the time when I'm using Righteous Fire. As a quick example, if I heal 500 life per second and Righteous Fire when active deals 300 life per second, I regenerate more than I lose. Sweet. But when a monster hits me with an arrow that causes me to bleed, or they use an ability on the ground that suddenly causes me to lose 600 life per second on top of the 300 life per second from my Righteous Fire, then I would die very quickly. So having anything that stops any type of damage over time, or reduces said damage, is great for this build. Hope that made sense. Having killed another minor god and bear mother, Gruthkul, I moved towards the Act 7 boss and kind of got lost on the way. Also, everyone say hi to Chaos. Moving back in time, just like Chaos, I gambled for a scepter upgrade and really hoped to get even more damage, because why not? Sadly, it didn't work out, but then I saw the Manage Shop button when talking to Faustus. As you may remember, He is the NPC you use for the currency exchange. So what is Manage Shop? In Path of Exile 2, the third edict, being version 0.3, this feature was added to the core game. A bit later, it was ported back to Path of Exile 1. It is asynchronous trade, the biggest change to Path of Exile's trade system. Previously in the ye olden times, you put the item into your premium stash tab, which allowed you to put it public, wait for someone to message you, then invite the player, trade it manually, and give yourself a kiss on the cheek. But now you can put any item that isn't currency into your shop, Faustus does the trade, and you get the reward. A player still has to come to your hideout, because your shop is in your hideout, but you don't need to be next to the player, stand in your hideout, or even be online. And even better, you, as the seller, don't need to pay gold. The buyer has to pay the gold fee to Faustus. All of this sounds amazing when writing it out like this. And believe me, it's great to use it when playing Path of Exile 1 and 2. But I had none of this. The Manage Shop feature has no tabs. You can convert your premium stash tabs to merchant tabs or buy them separately through the website. But this is a free-to-play challenge, meaning I have no premium stash tabs, because they cost money, and money isn't free. But my OnlyFans is. Jokes aside, this is sadly the biggest downside of being a free-to-play player. But it does make sense, because either you sell an item through the premium stash tab or the merchant tab. Both required and require real-life money. Grinding Gear Games, the developers, didn't make something free that previously wasn't, which would have pissed off a lot of players. Players in the past spending money on something that later became free would have been a bad business decision. So from that point of view, and again, not wanting to piss off players, this was the best solution. That is only half the story though. There is a plus for everyone, even free-to-play players. In this example, I am the seller of items. This was an issue in my previous challenge video too. If I found a great item, how do I get currency for it, which I could then use for upgrades? I could use the trade chat or the forum on the website. Both are cringe as fuck, I'm sorry, but being the buyer of items is now much simpler. I find an item on the trade website in my browser, then click a button which brings me to that person's hideout in the game. It instantly opens the merchant shop, which the other player paid for, highlights the item I was interested in, and I can just buy it. That's it. This whole asynchronous trade works on both sides and is a plain upgrade to the previous trade system, or an addition to it. There is a bit more to say, but more on it later when I'm in the endgame. This was an incredibly long tangent, but I wanted to go somewhat chronologically through my playthrough. With all this said, it was time to confront the final boss of Act 7. Spider Mommy, Arakali, Spinner of Shadows.
Death is the true climax of perverted lust.
Aracali was no big deal. The Righteous Fire build by Pohx was doing incredibly well.
What with such large walls trying to keep out? Or in?
God damn it, do I love the strange voice. Sorry, fangirling. I could have had even more damage against Aracali if I did the Labyrinth again. I don't know why, but I usually do the Labyrinth after Act 7. Now being in Act 8 and back in the Sarn encampment, ignore the green tint, we'll fix that in a second, I quickly moved into the Cruel Labyrinth. If you played Path of Exile 1, you might know it, but I'll explain it anyway. There are 4 different labyrinths. 3 of them can be done during the story, and the last one, being the Uba Lab, as the community calls it, is usually done during the endgame at around level 75. I like doing it at level 90. Just slightly over-leveling, so I can make sure I actually do it on my first try. That's foreshadowing. Now, having gone through the second labyrinth, I use my 2 Ascendancy skill points to get Ramako, Sun's Light, which has the modifier nearby enemy monsters' fire resistance against damage over time is minus 20% while you are stationary. And with you, they still mean you, the cutie watching this video right now. So, to explain this briefly, even though it's fairly straightforward, monsters and bosses have resistances, just like us, the player. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Resistance can go into the negative, and if it does, it's bad. Well, good for us if the monsters have negative resistance, because it is a multiplier to damage. Math aside, because I'm not smart enough, this node says while you are stationary. So if I stood there next to the monster or boss and prepare myself to get hit in the face, I deal more damage, with damage over time, which I do with Righteous Fire and Fire Trap. This forces me to have even greater defense and life regeneration, or any type of recovery, to get the most out of this node. I can't just run in circles around the boss, because that means I would be moving, and this entire node would be worthless. A huge upside, but with a twist. It also kind of goes against the whole walking simulator build, but I had so much damage even while moving that it kind of didn't matter. I think it's also supposed to be a damage upgrade against bosses, not for the trash monsters running around. Moving on to the sewer and deeper into Act 8. First of all, this area looks gorgeous every time I go into it. It looks disgusting. It's a sewer, but it also looks great. You know what I mean? Killing Doedre once again lifts the green tint and lets me move towards the Solaris Temple and the Lunaris Temple. You may remember those from Act 3. I don't know why, but I always go to the Solaris Temple first, so that is what I did, helping Clarissa once again by killing her husband Tolman gave me a skill point. She tried to use dark magic to reanimate his corpse. What did you expect, Clarissa? Dead people coming back to life over and over and over? Foreshadowing is a literary device. Moving through Grain Gate, I killed the Gemling Legionnaires in about 2.3 seconds. Seriously, they have 0 health for a boss. I then fought the 100 ping in the Solaris Temple and got myself one of the 2 quest items to finish this act. Then I took a dip in the bathhouse, moving through the high gardens, and fought Ugol, Reflection of Terror. More like my reflection in the morning, so he was another minor god. And spoiler, those enemies are reused in Path of Exile 2, Act 1. Sorry for breaking your immersion. What the hell is my ping? Goodness gracious. Path of Exile 1 and 2 are both always online games. It do be like that sometimes. Having leveled to a clean level 60, I grabbed the Moon Orb in the Lunaris Temple and found myself better boots. 30% increased movement speed with 102 maximum life, and that on an armor base. Perfect for my build. The upcoming boss, or bosses, is my favorite fight during the acts in Path of Exile 1. The presentation and music is top tier. Enjoy the short fight against the Act 8 bosses and 2 sisters, Lunaris, Eternal Moon, and Solaris, Eternal Sun.
I cannot carry this.
Solaris, Lunaris. Eclipse cold pride, flaming rage, and pass beyond this human age.
While going through the Blood Aqueduct towards the Act 9 town Highgate, still the best music, a map dropped, and somehow I stood there like a deer in headlights. What the hell was I doing? I started Act 9 by turning the game off. That was a bold move on my end. This was the end of my 3rd gaming session. I'm a gamer, by the way, and my playtime was 6 hours and 38 minutes. Still far from 24 hours, but I was slowly approaching it, and I was still in the story. At the start of my next session, I got blessed by the crafting gods and managed to make myself a better scepter. My righteous fire dealt 20,300 fire damage per second, and now it dealt 23,000 fire damage per second. Not an insane upgrade, like with attack-based skills, but at the start of Act 7, if you remember, I dealt about half that. So in 2 acts, or an hour in-game time, I doubled my damage by just playing the game and doing some stuff on the skill tree. Playing this build felt very easy, after doing a few side quests to kill the last few gods and... sounds so weird out of context. Just killing some gods in my free time. No big deal. Sorry. Doing those side quests gave me more skill points, and I also encountered a certain league mechanic. Hi Jun. We'll talk about her later. Killing Shakari, Queen of the Sands, aka the Scorpion boss. No, not the one from Path of Exile 2. They are very different. To be fair, the one from Path of Exile 2 is way cooler. Going in order, I defeated the Basilisk, got the Trathan powder, and killed Sin's wife, Garukan, Queen of the Winds. Hey, don't blame me, I didn't write the lore. Now with all these things coming together, Sin was able to concoct a thing to open a path into the belly of the beast. I mean, we couldn't have traveled back in time with Alva and asked Doriani for another laser, obviously. Defeating the spirits of Sharon, Maligaro, and Doedre opens the path to the Act 9 boss, an amalgamation of all three of them, the Depraved Trinity. After killing that abomination and being flooded out by literal waves of blood, Lily Roth picked me up to sail back to Oriath. Now in Act 10 of Path of Exile 1, I had to find a way to Kitava and defeat him. I know, what a surprise. First, I had to walk past the hordes of demons. Second, killing Vilenta, the NPC from Act 5, got me another skill point reward. Third, I had some zoomies in the ossuary. This is the definition of wee. Then I moved into the third labyrinth and defeated Izaro again and again. I then skilled the Ascendancy node Hinekora, Death's Fury. Path of Exile 2, Act 4 by the way, also appropriate last node right before Kitava. If you know the lore, you know. This node gives the following modifier. Enemies you or your totems kill have 5% chance to explode, dealing 500% of their maximum life as fire damage. This is amazing for clear, because while walking through enemies, it makes a big boom boom sometimes. In addition, if the big boom happens around a rare monster, it might instantly kill it. The negative aspect of this, in a strange way, is that 5% just doesn't feel enough. Oh, in the upcoming Mirage expansion, being version 3.28, they buffed it to 10%, but also nerfed the explosion damage. I might have done this challenge too early. To be fair, there are other ways to explode monsters, which I'll explain later, but none of it is as powerful as this node was. The 500% of maximum life as an explosion and that in fire damage is, or was, insane. For context, and to briefly skip forward, the monster level in a Tier 1 map is level 68. According to the wiki, normal monsters would have about 10,000 life. Magic monsters get 75% and rare monsters get 100% more life on top of that. Ignoring the map modifiers right now. All this is nothing compared to the 500% explosion hitting their faces. And the explosion itself has a larger radius than other explosions in the game, meaning it can hit even more enemies. And if I'm correct, an explosion killing an enemy can trigger another explosion. The chance for that to happen with only 5% is obviously very low. But when you see a lot of enemies explode out of existence, it's digital crack straight into my penar. The tangent is now over. With the Staff of Purity in my left hand and my penar, I mean a glass of water in my right hand, because I need it, innocence was revived. I could have fought the final boss of Path of Exile 1's story right now. But then I was greedy and used the market panel. This is another feature that was added when the merchant tabs were introduced. This is not another 15-minute tangent, please believe. The market panel is an in-game trade function. There is now no need, asterisk, for you to open your browser and search for items through the website. It can all be done in the game. Absolutely huge that this was finally added to the game, because people have been asking for this for years now. First of all, I had a single Chaos Orb, and being this late in the economy, a lot of uniques are very cheap. For example, the Rise of the Phoenix shield, which Pohx recommends in his notes. It's an incredibly strong unique shield, perfect for the Righteous Fire build, because it gives very high life regeneration, but more importantly, 5% to maximum fire resistance. With this, it's very easy getting to the 90% limit I mentioned much earlier. This makes the damage over time I take from using Righteous Fire barely anything. It's great, and again, super cheap with only one Chaos Orb. Back to the market panel and comparing it to a browser or website. I'm sure this negative aspect that I'm going to mention now is hopefully going to be fixed soon. A browser allows you to save URLs, aka links. You can bookmark trade links for your build. A ring you want to get, a certain helmet, maybe an expensive unique item, probably Mageblood. You can save it for later. The market panel has none of that. The moment you close the game, or disconnect in this always online game, everything you typed in here is gone. I'm sure we'll have a bookmark and favorite tab at the top in the future. For now, it's great to find something very quickly and something very specific, like a unique map or skill gem at a specific level. But the moment you have to retype a bunch of modifiers over and over, the trade website in your browser is still superior and saves you time long term. I'm looking forward to the day when this market panel is all I really need. It also looks great. Good job to the UI team at Grinding Gear Games. This was the last tangent, I swear. It was time to finish the story of Path of Exile 1 by defeating the Act 10 boss, Kitava, the Insatiable.
I shall strike you down. May a new dawn arise.
As you just saw, I finished the story of Path of Exile 1. I had a playtime of 7 hours and 51 minutes. This gave me barely over 16 hours to finish this challenge, by getting the 4 Void Stones.
What the hell are Void Stones, Daniel?
You might be asking again in this voice. I explained this in my previous challenge video, so here is a very quick summary of how the endgame works in 3.27. The endgame consists of maps, and maps have tiers. A higher map tier means more and better loot, but also higher monster level and thus difficulty. There are 16 tiers of maps and many different types of them. Some are smaller, some are wider, some are inside, some like it outside. You get the point. The interface you see is the Atlas. An endless void with unlimited monsters, bosses, dangers, and of course, loot. The perfect place to grind endlessly for power. And power is what you'll need for what is to come. Using a map in a map device opens portals to an instance with monsters and a map boss. Defeating the map boss has a high chance dropping a map or a map of a higher tier. As you get towards the higher tiers of maps, you are going to encounter eldritch beings. I can't explain this briefly, just go with it. The eldritch beings that have to be defeated are also called pinnacle bosses, because they are at the peak of the Atlas. Figuratively. Defeating the Searing Exarch, the Eater of Worlds, the Maven, and achieving victory in the Uber Elder fight rewards you with a Void Stone. Each Void Stone upgrades the tiers of maps on the Atlas, making it possible for you to run your favorite map at tier 16. Thus, giving you more experience points for killing hundreds of thousands of monsters. Showering you with more loot that you know what to do with. Trying to fill that hole, to feed that desire that lies deep within, and satiate your never-ending hunger for power. It's quite straightforward what I had to do now. I should do the highest tier of map I have as quickly as possible. Defeat the map boss, rinse and repeat until I can attempt a fight against the pinnacle bosses. Did I do that? No, not really. I got distracted.
Exile. Exile, wake up.
Let's jump into the endgame of Path of Exile 1. First off, I did the endgame in multiple sessions because, as the normie I have become, I can't play video games for more than an hour. Kind of. Second, I started with some inventory management. That's metal as fuck. As a free-to-play player, or in short, free-to-play, I had to make sure all my tabs are sorted and in order. This might seem like an ADHD thing. It's not. Please believe, what it came down to was to minimize the time wasted trying to find the currency orbs in my stash. I needed them to craft my maps because an alchemy orb makes a map rare and adds additional modifiers. These modifiers modify the map and monsters inside. Modifiers increase the item rarity and item quantity of the map. Thus, blasting through a map with higher rarity yields more loot. After running my very first map comfortably, which is never the case, I killed the map boss and received an Atlas skill point. Oh boy, another skill tree! This one is fairly straightforward. The Atlas skill tree changes the maps on your Atlas and the leak content inside it. If you wanted to see more of a certain type of content, you increase the chance for it to appear. Or if you are like me, you can just straight up block content, because it's not your cup of flavored iced tea. Moving on to what happened after my first map. I changed my item filter to the strict variant, because I saw way too much loot on the ground. Believe me, it's an actual issue if you played Path of Exile 1 until the endgame. Actually, scratch that. There's already too much loot in Act 5. Maybe I should play Ruthless mode instead. Nah, I'm joking. Unless... Following that, I unlocked Kyrex's Vault Pass. Yeah, it's a season pass, but there is a free and paid version. The free version can be unlocked by just playing the game and doing the bonus objectives of maps. You receive currency and map rewards, usually. But, for the sake of this challenge, I ignored Kyrex's Vault Pass entirely. Having mentioned bonus objectives of maps, let me explain those. Maps that are white, as in their icon is white, are called white maps. Makes sense. They have to be magic or higher to get the bonus objective. Yellow maps have to be rare or higher, and red maps have to be rare and corrupted to get the bonus objective. The map icon color depends on the map tier. A tier 3 is white, a tier 8 is yellow, and a tier 12 is red, for example. Running a few more maps and getting warm feelings seeing those explosions, I encountered Jun. And Jun. Trying to craft a new Void Scepter turned out to be bad. What a waste of time and alteration orbs. Crafting in Path of Exile 1. My favorite. Now, one issue that I didn't think of when starting this challenge was, what the hell am I going to farm? As in, farming content to get currency, to buy upgrades, and finish the challenge. After encountering an Abyss crack in the Coves map, I kinda liked it. I'm not a fan of Abyss in Path of Exile 1, not 2, because you have to follow the crack, which likes to travel a lot through the map. And these monsters are tough, but with Pohx's righteous fire build and making sure my defenses were in order, Abyss was easy. With Hinekora's Death Fury, the explosions could take out an entire opened hole. I have to stop using the words crack and hole, good lord. Abyss was actually sweet, so I doubled down on it for a while and bought myself some scarabs. I have to explain scarabs now, right? Scarabs allow you to add or modify content by adding it to the map device and the map you want to run. It works in addition to the Atlas skill tree. So there are multiple levers you can pull when it comes to content in maps. For now, I bought basic Abyss scarabs to have an additional Abyss in my map, which, as you saw, pumps out monsters and gave me sweet XP. On my exiled path, I also encountered Harvest. It's a garden-like area with a sexy tattooed woman called Oshabi. Don't shame me for having a type. This area has seeds, and when harvested, it spawns monsters. After putting them to sleep, they don't give fruits, but life force. Harvest has a vibe, but is quite difficult for my usual beta cuck characters. Thankfully, with Pohx's course for only $999 on becoming an Alpha Giga Chat in Path of Exile 1, I was able to absolutely mog those monsters and 360 kickflip them into the ground. What I mean with this gibberish was build good. Righteous Fire and those sweet explosions made harvest quite easy and gave good currency. How did I make currency? Life Force is technically a currency type, which can be sold through Faustus and the currency exchange. So I did harvest frequently at the start when I came across it. It's also a crafting mechanic, but don't worry about that right now. After doing some socket crafting, I realized I forgot to grab a crafting recipe in the Wrestle stream. In Act 4, I have over 7,000 hours in this video game. Chat, am I cooked? I then met a very lovely and caring character. Maven.
Mine now.
She is one of the pinnacle bosses and eldritch beings that invade the Atlas. She was now here and liked to play around. Killing the map boss, which she influenced, dropped her beacon, which allowed me to summon her into future maps. We'll be seeing her quite often from now on. Death's Oath, a unique body armor which, when equipped, gives the player a death aura, dealing chaos damage over time in a small area. So Righteous Fire, but evil. Maybe a future challenge video? At this point in the challenge, my Righteous Fire build needed more power. Thus, I got myself the unique belt Immortal Flesh. It gives all the good stats. More life, more flat life regeneration, and a bunch of elemental resistance. Just an amazing belt. Now, wanting even more power, the game dropped me a Divination Scarab of Cloister. Scarabs can be bought and sold through Faustus and the currency exchange. With a few Chaos Orbs, I got myself the unique ring, Death Rush. I don't have the time to explain every unique mechanic, so in short, it would grant me more speed and defense after killing a monster. Great for mapping, and completely useless during boss fights. It really wasn't necessary, but after doing some research, analyzing the data, I came to the conclusion going zoom zoom is fun.
By the muscular golden ass of innocence!
You can't scare me like that, Omniphobia. Harbingers could have been another currency farming strategy for RF. I saw Pohx farming them, but I don't really like them, and they got removed in 3.28. They really weren't up to 2026 standard in terms of quality and appearance. They were just some blue dudes floating around. What is up to 2026 standard is tower defense. Blight, which I briefly saw in Act 3, can drop a blighted map. It's a small map that is a big tower defense minigame. With Cassia's help, I won and got myself an Exalted Orb, a bunch of currency items, so many essences, a glorious loot pinata. Something unglorious, inglorious, bastards, explosion chests. I mentioned it earlier that there are different ways to explode monsters after they die. A body armor with the modifier enemies you kill have a % chance to explode, dealing a 10th of their maximum life as physical damage. That is a so-called explosion chest. The reason why I didn't buy one during this challenge was the budget. It's great for clear, but not for defeating pinnacle bosses. After window shopping, I encountered someone, the Envoy. He appeared in a higher tier map and was also an eldritch being, but wasn't here to fight me. He was the Maven's caretaker. His appearance means I had progressed the endgame storyline. To fast forward a bit, to continue Maven's questline, the player must invite her to the map and kill the map boss, which she then copies. In her crucible, you fight all the map bosses again, and usually fight a few of them at the same time. This is a very boss-focused mechanic in Path of Exile 1. With my RF build, this was no big challenge. This arena has to be done multiple times to even attempt the fight against Maven herself. So this was mandatory content if I wanted to finish this challenge. I continued inviting the Maven into my map if I didn't focus on other quest lines. Then the ambush scarab of discernment dropped, which was a nice surprise. Quite an expensive scarab, which I sold through Faustus / the currency exchange. I also should briefly explain Awakened PoE Trade. It is a third-party tool that everyone uses who plays Path of Exile excessively. It can be used to check the price of items by having a macro and seeing an interface pop up. Don't worry, it's legit. This is the simple explanation. The tool becomes kind of necessary during the endgame because you check the price of items constantly. Having been a gamer and progressing the Atlas, okay, I'm gonna stop doing the voice, I encountered the Envoy and the Maven again, this time next to a spire. Touching it with gloves on, it dropped the Flesh Compass. This is the tool to call upon the influence of the Eater of Worlds, another Eldritch being and pinnacle boss. When using the Eater of Worlds influence in a map, it adds additional influenced monsters and altars. Altars is another way to modify the map as you run through it. It offers two choices, but there are three different types. Either you modify the influenced monsters, the map boss, or you modify yourself, the player character. I'm not going to explain crazy strategies to get currency, so in short, I preferred the other pinnacle boss, the red one, because influenced monsters spawn immediately and don't have to wake up first. Also to keep in mind is that they are quite different in what they drop and how they modify things. Again, choose your flavored cup of iced tea. What I chose against my will was death. I was slightly overdoing it and going a bit too hard. You know what else is hard? Being frozen. Thus, I used a divine vessel to steal the soul of a map boss, which upgrades the Brine King Pantheon. You forgot that the Pantheon exists, right? Yeah, it's been an hour. In short, the Pantheon powers, both major and minor, can be upgraded. You can do so by using a divine vessel in the map device, killing the map boss, and then consuming the filled up divine vessel. You just slurp it out or something, I don't know. I now had 100% chance to avoid being frozen, which didn't matter yet because I used Purity of Elements. That aura made me immune to ailments. That includes being frozen. But I was preparing to switch over to Purity of Fire. Purity of Fire is another aura giving additional fire resistance, and way more importantly, additional maximum fire resistance. As a quick reminder, elemental and chaos resistances can be increased up to the 90% hard limit. Getting there matters if I wanted to become tanky. Pohx also told me to use this aura in his Alpha Giga Chat course for $999, on top of the additional $49.99 monthly subscription. If I got Purity of Fire to level 23, it would give me 5% additional maximum fire resistance. So how do I do that? First off, a skill gem can be naturally leveled to 20, but corrupted to 21 with a Valorb, which has a small chance. After that, I could use a +1 fire or +1 spell skill gem modifier on an amulet. Some chests or shields can have similar modifiers that increase a gem level if it's socketed in it. I'm sure Pohx can explain it even better, so follow his guides for more info. But in short, get the skill gem level higher and become tankier. The opposite of tanky is damage. It's not, but I needed a segue to this paragraph. Summon Skitterbots is another aura I now equipped. 2 tiny robot minions run under enemies, chilling and shocking them. And shocked enemies take 50% increased damage. So this was a neat damage upgrade. With power and confidence spewing out of my holes, I did another crucible, felt really good about myself, and then got absolutely bodied by Fake Nightmare. I was flying too high. Anyhow, Writhing Invitation. The Infinite Hunger is the sub-boss to the Eater of Worlds. He has to be defeated, or else one cannot fight the big boss. A movie from 1971 starring Bruce Lee. Even though I got sucked down into... you don't wanna know. The boss fight was easy. This build really showed how fun it can feel being tanky and not being scared of every tiny attack. In the previous map, I also found the luminous astrolabe. You probably guessed it, it's the beacon to call upon the Searing Exarch's influence. The red one. I was now able to follow up on 3 out of the 4 pinnacle boss quest lines. At this point, I realized this was taking a bit longer than I wanted to. The challenge and writing this script. So I thought I could speed things up by having a higher map tier, tier 15. That is not how it works though. The quest line, for example, wants you to start off at, let's say, tier 10, and then go to tier 11, and then tier 12, and so on. You can do higher tiers of maps, and it counts towards the quest line progression for Maven and the other 2 pinnacle bosses. But what's the point, beside potentially dying more often and maybe getting a bit more loot? So my thinking of let me skip ahead wasn't working, because it can't. But going to higher map tiers can unlock certain mechanics earlier, like with the beacons to call upon the Eldritch influences. Beside the Eldritch influences, there are other endgame mechanics. The latest one was added during the Secrets of the Atlas endgame expansion. I did 3 videos on that, if you are curious. Going through your very first tier 14 plus map, you can encounter Egan Kai Sirius. He has the same last name as the Shaper, aka Valdo, and Zana. Zana, or some call her Xana, is a well-known character in Path of Exile. With Egan's help, you can traverse memory threads to track down Zana to find and save her. I would call this the Zana storyline, which in 3.27 was not mandatory. In 3.28, it is. For the sake of this challenge, I completely ignored it. For a future challenge video, instead of doing all 4 Voidstones, I could do Zana's storyline instead and call it Zana%. Let me know in the comments if you are interested in that. Moving on to Heat Shiver, a quite popular but fairly common unique. which I couldn't really sell. Again, this is a free-to-play challenge, and selling items is complicated. So I just didn't and threw it into my stash. Following that, an older expansion from mid-2023 appeared, Affliction, or the Viridian Wildwood. In short, this area is in addition to the map itself, and while going through the dark, you can gather a variety of wisps. These wisps, after leaving the Wildwood, will attach themselves to rare and unique monsters randomly, drastically buffing them and increasing their loot in a variety of ways. If you like it, sweet. I don't really like it, so I usually skip it. To be fair, it's also sometimes incredibly deadly. So why risk it? You know what else is risky? This water boss. I hate this guy. Seriously, he is my nemesis. I'm glad the map is called Forking River, because the other F word I can't say. If I do, my mom is going to be very fucking mad at me. The opposite of mad is joy, I think, which I get from running through narrow corridors, which are great for righteous fire. I'm a deadly circle walking through narrow hallways. I love it. This was the end of my 5th session, and then I took a 2-day break. I had to take a breather, which I'm glad I did, because it's gonna be crazy from now on. To have a real-life example from one of my recent hobbies, I started to bike upwards the Atlas, which was a very slight incline hill for the past hours in this challenge. I was so very close to the cusp of the hill, and after that was an incredibly steep decline to the goal. This is where I was when starting my 6th session. Starting this session with Harvest and still running tiers of maps way above my pay grade, I predictably got bodied by the rare monsters. I fought through it, or died through it, and then saw Jannar the Omen, a tier 4 seed which has a 1% chance to appear.
Cannot do this yet.
Tier 4 seeds can be one of the 3 Harvest bosses, which drop far more life force but are also crazy difficult. As you can see, this was a challenge and it took me multiple tries. It was kind of worth it, seeing all this juicy life force. It is currency, after all, which I needed. Also, it's cool to show off a Harvest boss during these challenges. With the currency, I finally bought myself a glorious Plate 6 Link body armor. More damage for my Righteous Fire setup, so mapping should feel smoother, and thus I could go faster. Equipped with a 6 Link, I attempted the Polaric Invitation. The Black Star is the sub-boss to the Searing Exile.
Maven, the challenge begins. Your champion will fall. Replica!
I love the vibe of this fight, but it was over quite quickly, as it was fairly easy. I also love money. Specifically Chaos Orbs. I got 112 Chaos Orbs by selling a Valdos puzzle box. Thankfully, it is technically a currency item. I am not going to explain what it does, but I'm going to tell you that you could right-click it and something super exciting could happen. Ooh. Anyhow, let me briefly explain implicit Eldritch modifiers and Eldritch orbs. Implicit modifiers are the modifiers that you usually have on the item itself. But Eldritch orbs add implicit modifiers from a special pool. This is just another way to get more power on a variety of items on your character. This time I was very lucky. By using a single orb, it got me life regen on boots, which I wanted for my Righteous Fire character. A few minor things that happened towards the end of this short session. First, the Amethyst Ring upgrade, which had a little bit less life than my Iron Ring, but an Amethyst Ring has Chaos Resistance as an implicit and as an explicit modifier. More Chaos Resistance is never a bad idea. I also anointed my amulet, applying a skill node to the amulet itself. It's like a free skill point. I got the Aggressive Bastion skill node, which had the modifier 10% chance to gain an endurance charge on kill while holding a shield. It doesn't mean I need to kill the enemy with my shield. Just holding one is fine, which I do all the time. An endurance charge gives 4% additional elemental damage reduction and 4% additional physical damage reduction per endurance charge. Later during this challenge, I'm going to have a total of 5 charges during boss fights. I have to use a calculator for this, but that means it gave me 20% reduction of elemental and physical damage on top of all the other defensive layers, which is huge. You feel really tanky when you have endurance charges. Having continued grinding my gears, I received both quest items to attempt the fight against both Eldritch bosses. I didn't feel ready though. To solve this beta energy I had, I used money, just like Andrew Tate. And I hope I don't land in prison like him. I got myself a new helmet with a huge life regeneration modifier on it, which you can probably guess, at this point, is great for the Righteous Fire build. Even more upgrades coming up in the next sessions.
An emperor must know precisely where he stands.
I finally did the Uber Lab at level 87, not 75 as it suggests. I wanted to make sure I can actually do the 4th and last labyrinth and get my last 2 ascendancy points without dying.
Apparently, this is the ending you deserve.
No one saw that. I did it first try and got myself the last ascendancy node, Valaco, Storm's Embrace, which gives modifiers to maximum fire resistance, also apply to maximum cold and lightning resistance. More max fire res now gave me more max cold and lightning res, making me really gosh darn tanky across the board. The elemental board, I mean. It wasn't a damage boost, but being more tanky meant I could comfortably do boss fights. So I tried an Elder Guardian. Yeah, my damage felt uncomfortably low, and after dying twice, I did something else. TLDR, I got mogged. After running some map, I noticed that I barely dropped enough tier 16 or even tier 15 maps to continue running them. So I focused my entire Atlas skill tree by using all my Atlas skill points on just getting more maps. It actually helped. Thus, I could focus on other things, like block and recovery. Technically, I did this a bit later, but let me tell you what I did in one breath. The Keystone Glancing Blows doubled all my block and spell block chance and made me reach the 75% hard limit. The downside was blocked hits now deal 65% of their damage. Blocked hits resulted in 0 damage. Not anymore. To mitigate that, I got a shield with a modifier 3% of life on block. With 75% chance to block, I block a lot, and each block recovers my life by 3%. Thus, the bigger my maximum life was, the less I cared about enemies, and having a higher maximum life meant more damage with my Righteous Fire. You got all that? Keystone on skill tree makes block chance higher. Shield makes it so that if me block, I get life. Me like get life. Righteous Fire scales with life. Life is damage. Why use lot word when few word do trick? It's a combination of different game mechanics that come together beautifully. Again, bless Pohx for his amazing build guide, literally holding my hand through this process. Having spoken with words and mentioning life, I grabbed a new jewel with increased maximum life and fire damage over time multiplier. After this gag earlier, I feel like I have difficulty breathing. Anyhow, these jewels can be equipped on the skill tree and the jewel sockets. They can also be freaking expensive because they are so popular for Righteous Fire builds. Steadily progressing Maven's questline and continuing to do the many maps on the Atlas unlocked the second Atlas skill tree loadout. Atlas skill tree loadouts let me swap between different farming strategies on the fly. This is also a bit of a reset of your Atlas skill tree, which would cost you a lot of gold. I used this opportunity to focus on a new currency farming strategy I teased earlier in this video. Betrayal. Betrayal, or the Immortal Syndicate, is a league mechanic in which you... Hey, Mark Roberts from Grinding Gear Games, could you help me out here?
The Immortal Syndicate is organized into 4 divisions: Transportation, Fortification, Research, and Intervention. As you encounter the Immortal Syndicate members, you'll gain intelligence for each of these divisions to discover the location of their leaders, tracking them to their safe houses. Defeating the division leaders at their safe houses will reward you with intelligence on the Syndicate Mastermind. In your journey to track down the Syndicate leader, you'll manipulate the members of the Immortal Syndicate to change divisions, form friendships and rivalries, and even banish them from the Syndicate for a time.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
In all seriousness that my body can muster, betrayal is complex. I followed a guide on maxroll.gg, which helped, but it gets tedious doing this for hours. Thus, I did the easier and probably worse strategy. I tried to make everyone hate each other so they become rivals. If Syndicate member X attacked me, member Y, who hated X, was going to jump in. Then I just beat them both up, got more influence on the board, which made this bar fill up, and I could go to their safe houses. To force this type of content in my map, I used the Betrayal Scarab, which made Jun appear every time. In addition, I used the Betrayal Scarab of reinforcements, so Syndicate members had a higher chance to be accompanied by other members, thus forcing even more members into the map. This gave me more influence on the board, which made me fight them in their safe house or hideout more often. Everything I just explained was hopefully not a lot of mumbo-jumbo. But why do all this? In short, the Syndicate Medallion. It's an item that lets you fight the big boss of the Immortal Syndicate. It can only drop from beating up the faction leader in their safe house. The medallion is technically a currency item, and thus could be sold through Faustus. That was my big plan. Would it work? We'll see very soon. After watching me buying all these upgrades and scarabs, you might be thinking, "Hey Mr. Dumble, sir, couldn't you just do the boss fights instead now, instead of wasting currency and time?" Yes, you are right with that amazing voice. I could have attempted the bosses already, but I just didn't trust the build and my skill to do the more difficult boss fights, like Uber Elder and Maven. On the other hand, I did feel ready for the other two Eldritch boss fights. Enjoy this short showcase of both the Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds.
I want to win this.
You can win, hatchling. Writhing rust. Fish. Inescapable.
Energize the spheres.
Writhing rust. You deny us escape from pain.
How impotent.
Your absurd defiance ends here, hatchling.
The atlas must remain mine.
Incineration. Disintegration. Cleansing. This realm shall be studied by flame for eternity. The fires of 1,000 suns. Annihilation. Incineration. Disintegration. Cleansing. The hatchling surprises.
Challenge me for this realm.
With both Eldritch bosses defeated, I now had 2 out of the 4 Void Stones for this challenge. A time of 18 hours and 5 minutes worried me a bit though. There was not much time left for 2 whole pinnacle bosses, especially the more difficult ones. Thankfully, the game was going to help me out in the upcoming sessions by rolling the dice in my favor. Now in my 8th session I jumped into my favorite map, Toxic sewer. As a toxic gamer myself, no, that's not the reason. Narrow corridors are just great for righteous fire, but also for spin to win skills like Cyclone. A Cyclone challenge. After mapping a lot, I finally had enough influence to enter one of the Syndicate's safe houses. I fought my way through, beat up the bad guys, and received an all-flame ember of the ethereal. What the hell are all flames? You might be thinking, or saying out loud. They are old content from the Necropolis League, which was the league during my last challenge video. All flames were reused and added to the betrayal mechanic, because the lore makes somewhat sense, I guess. Gameplay-wise, it's a different type of scarab, but wacky. The all flame I got sold for 220 Chaos Orbs. Money is starting to happen, and with money I bought myself a gravel bike. Sorry, I meant I bought myself the Oriath's End Unique Flask, which was my favorite unique flask for quite some time. It has the modifier enemies you kill during effect have a % chance to explode, dealing a 10th of their maximum life as damage of a random element. Yes, more explosions. Let's go! This flask is, I think, technically stronger than the explosion chest, but the explosion area is small, and during boss fights it was useless. So I unequipped the flask later during boss fights. Now getting the hang of running maps with this build and feeling comfortable, I did more and more Syndicate safe houses quickly in a row. One safe house gave me a Veiled Chaos Orb, which sold for 14 Chaos Orbs. Another safe house was the big jackpot. The Syndicate medallion dropped, and I sold it for 310 Chaos Orbs. And in the same safe house, I got the Gift of the Goddess, which sold for another 141 Chaos Orbs. In total, I made 392 Chaos Orbs, or just about 2 Divines, and I used it to buy myself the Cloak of Flame unique body armor. Cloak of Flame is an amazing defensive boost for Righteous Fire builds because of the modifier 40% of physical damage taken as fire damage. As I was grinding, the gears in my head started turning. I remembered a type of comment from my previous challenge video. I'm paraphrasing here, but they said something along the lines of, I sucked balls for buying the fragments to the Uber Elder fight. How to get access to the Uber Elder fight? Great question, viewer. You need to defeat the 4 Guardians of the Shaper and the Elder. The Guardian maps are kind of like your average tier 16 maps, just with stronger, more time-consuming bosses. After fighting the 8 Guardians, dropping a fragment each, one can attempt the Shaper and the Elder. Both fights are really freaking slow and tedious. And worse, you only get 1 fragment per fight. You need 2 different fragments from both fights. So in total, 4. Not wanting to literally waste my life away, I bought every single Shaper and Elder Guardian map. Thankfully, I found a player who sold so many Guardian maps in bulk. I could just pick and choose the ones I wanted. I crafted them to be white, as in plain vanilla without any map modifiers. I didn't want to make this more difficult and time-consuming for myself. I just wanted to get the fragments. Speaking of time, I'm going to buy the other Uber Elder fragment that won't drop. This whole thing is a compromise to the comments that mentioned that I was a pussy bitch, which is fair. Hope this is better in some way. Moving on, I had a bit more cash on hand and got some oils and changed my anoint to Disciple of the Unyielding. What matters a lot on this skill node is the first line. +1 to minimum endurance charges. Minimum endurance charges means that the bottom was lifted up. Usually the minimum amount of charges you have is 0, because you have none of them when you just walk around. By lifting the bottom up and having +1 minimum, I always had 1 endurance charge active, no matter what. Pretty neat to have slightly higher defenses all the time. Reaching level 91 was also quite neat. Righteous Fire felt better and smoother than ever before. I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, but it never stopped improving. RF was kind of like a drug, because I was constantly thinking, how could I get this inside of me? I was spending even more Chaos Orbs to get new flasks. The modifier gain 3 charges when you are hit by an enemy was what I needed. My main defense was armor, so I didn't evade any attacks or hits, and thus I could use that to my advantage. Now every time a monster hits me, I get flask charges, which helps a lot during boss fights, because now my flasks literally can't run out. Well, my life flask can. After getting new flasks, my luck wasn't running out for some reason. An all-flame Ember of the Gilded sold for 310 Chaos Orbs. God, I love this strategy so much. It was printing money, like the US government. Maven's Crucible thingy could now be crafted. This wasn't possible previously because they were quest items, but now it's just like a map. When this happens, it means that I now had finished Maven's questline. Well, technically fighting her would be the finale. The Crucible fight thingy was fine, but a bit slow. RF isn't the big damage dealer like many other skills or builds, but it made up in defenses and literally not caring about standing in attacks. Also, something fun is to not look at the fight, but at the flasks in the bottom left. Look how quickly they fill up, thanks to the flask modifier I got earlier. After the fight was over, it dropped 2 crescent splinters. If I had 10 of these in my inventory, it would turn into the Maven's Writ, an item I could use in the map device to confront Maven. I bought the last 8 splinters for 69 nice Chaos Orbs, because repeating many maps and inviting Maven to it would take quite some time, and time is something I didn't have much left. I was now already at 20 hours and 47 minutes.
Stop and hunt.
Now being in my second to last session, I had to really focus to finish this challenge in the 24-hour time frame. So I jumped straight into defeating all 4 Elder Guardians, which suddenly were no big deal. Defenses were just amazing. But again, a bit time consuming, so I was a bit shaky when playing. Moving on to the Syndicate hideout and getting a Veiled Chaos Orb. Sometimes not that lucky, which is Never mind! The shaking is back. I got lucky again, and a chest dropped me 12 cards of the Divine Beauty. Turning that divination card stack in by speaking to Lily Roth gave me 7 divine orbs. Just straight up 7 of them. No fight, no hassle, just cash in hand. Now being a baller with money, I didn't invest it in ETFs, but spent it on a new helmet. The Shaper-influenced helmet had 2 special modifiers. First, socketed gems are supported by level 18 burn damage, and second, socketed gems are supported by level 16 concentrated effect. If an active gem is put into that helmet and equipped, it would be supported by whatever the modifier says, if it's possible. To improve the helmet further, I crafted +1 to socketed AoE gems on it and got myself a level 21 Fire Trap gem. By swapping my Fire Trap setup to the new helmet, Fire Trap was now level 22 and technically a 6-link. Why? 4 gems can be socketed in the helmet like normal, and the other 2 gems are the modifiers on the helmet itself. That is how you can have a 6-link without needing 6 links. If this clicked in your head the moment I mentioned it, that is the beauty of Path of Exile 1 and its amazing item system since the past 10 years. With more single target damage, I did the Elder fight by using the 4 fragments I got earlier. The fight was slow as frick and no big challenge. Afterwards, I used a bit more currency to buy the Eldritch Orbs and got another +1 maximum fire resistance on my boots. With more defense, it was time to get all 4 fragments for the Shaper by defeating the Guardians. Even after all these years of these bosses being in the game, and obvious power creep, the usual issue of an ARPG in which player power grows over time, like year after year, all 4 Shaper Guardians still pack a punch. Now with all 4 fragments in my hand, it was time to fight the Shaper.
You force my hand again, little mouse. So be it. You've chosen to side with chaos. This is my world, and you shall obey my order. Gaze into the abyss.
Same with the Elder. The fight was quite slow, but it has a vibe. Zana and Shaper's voice acting, as well as the music, are top-notch.
These memories are mine. I cannot lose them.
They lied to you, Father. I'm your true memory.
To save the future, the past must be sacrificed.
To me, Exile, quickly!
Irrelevant!
Now with the Shaper defeated, or fleeing, it was time to do more Syndicate hideouts to see if I could squeeze out a bit more currency and get upgrades. That was the plan, but holy mother of lag! Path of Exile 1 and 2 are both always online games. So if it lags, you can't really do anything about it, besides swapping to another server or hoping that the server you are on gets a grip. While the servers were melting, the game didn't forget to drop me good loot. I got an all-flame ember of the ethereal again, which sold for 200 chaos orbs. Sweet. With not a whole lot of time left, I thought why not spend my leftover currency to buy an upgrade and do the following boss fights quicker. That was my thinking back then, but it makes no sense, right? It's like spending 30 minutes to change the tires of your car, because then your car rolls faster, but the travel time to work is 4 minutes. It's not going to matter. Same with looking up an upgrade, comparing it, pondering my orbs, and after 10 minutes deciding to buy it, the boss would have already been dead. Twice. Either way, with 4 divine orbs in hand, I got another new Void Scepter that improved my damage per second from 204,000 to 212,000. Yeah, that was totally worth it. Good job, Past Daniel, you dumbo. While doing all this, the servers didn't get a grip, and worsened. So I had to stop playing. Last session now. For real. On God, 100. 23 hours and 2 minutes in, and a ping of 3,000 didn't raise my confidence. Still, I fixed the high ping in my hideout by resetting it. I got no time to explain this, let's keep moving. Another Syndicate medallion. I love it. With more money in hand, I bought the support gem Awakened Swift Affliction, a much stronger version of the normal Swift Affliction gem. In the current 3.28 expansion as of March 2026, Awakened support gems are now called Greater Support Gems. So don't be surprised when you play this build and some support gems are called differently. For the end of this challenge, I had to do one more Val related content because Path of Exile 2. Vaults of Atziri. Also, I kneel for my queen! I'm going insane. Enough cringe. Let's get the last 2 pinnacle boss fights going with probably the most epic music in the game. Here is the Uber Elder fight with the build Righteous Fire.
I may not remember.
Father, no!
Putrefy, rot, spoil, and fester.
Exile, do something!
Gaze into the abyss.
Come on now. Any day now. You got it, video game. There we go. Gamers, there was no time to waste. Let's go straight to Maven.
The prize piece comes to join.
My collection.
God damn it, do I love this music.
A cascade of pain. Stand still.
Pain will be returned tenfold. Space aligns. Behold my collection. Beloved toy. The most beloved toy.
Scurry, scurry. Stand still.
I require aid!
You forced an intervention, Nomad. You have proved your might. You have proved your ignorance.
The toy refuses. The toy causes me pain. Is the toy alive? I apologize to the toy. I did not realize you were like me. Oh, I hope we can continue to play together.
Maven was finally defeated, and with the last Void Stone, the challenge was officially over. The final time was 23 hours, 52 minutes, and 59 seconds. But was it actually under 24 hours? If I include the Witch Mule character from the very start of the challenge, I would have to add an additional 12 minutes to the final clock. The final clock being 23 hours and 52 minutes. Thus, I kind of failed the challenge. But just barely. Okay? I'm good at this game. Please believe. Thank you so much for watching this enormous video that took me literally months to make. If you enjoyed, subscribe, and don't forget to stay hydrated, gamers.